He wants to be noticed.
Don't they all?
In the spring of 1833, 22-year-old Harriet Beecher Stowe crossed over the river into neighboring Kentucky. She had never before visited a slave state.
We have this fine specimen here. What do you get? 25. 25? 50? We got 50 going once. 50 going twice. 50 sold to the gentleman here. How you gentlemen doing this nice, warm Kentucky day? Gonna keep this thing going?
What Stowe sees there is a human thing. She sees these people. I mean, they are human beings. She's confronted with it in such an intimate way. And I think that never leaves her.
Not long after the passage of the Fugitive Slave Law, a runaway knocked on the door of a house in Brunswick, Maine. As fate would have it, he had come upon the new home of Harriet Beecher Stowe and her family. Stowe was well aware of the punishment facing anyone who helped a runaway, but she was glad of the opportunity to defy the government. "Before this law, I might have tried to send him somewhere else," she wrote her sister. As it was, all hands in the house united in making him up a bed. Like many Northerners, Stowe was deeply disturbed by the Fugitive Slave Law. For her, its cruelty was all too real.
My heart breaks at the cruelty and injustice our nation inflicts on the slave. I am tormented by the thought of the slave mothers whose babes are torn from them. I pray to God to let me do a little, and to cause my cry for them to be heard.
And it all came together in a vision. Instead of Christ on the cross, she saw an image of a slave being whipped. And she wrote the ending of Uncle Tom's Cabin when Uncle Tom dies. And when she read it to her family, they were all crying and they said, "Mama, you've got to write the rest of the story."
On March 20th, 1852, a publisher released a book on a difficult subject by an unknown author. By the end of the week, Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel about the evils of slavery had sold 10,000 copies. Within 2 months, 50,000. 3 paper mills feeding 3 printing presses running 24 hours a day, and still the publisher couldn't keep up. Soon, Uncle Tom's Cabin began reaching vast new audiences, including many who had never read a novel when it was adapted as a wildly popular play. In Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe made millions of Americans see slavery for the first time through the eyes of its victims. The mother whose child was to be sold away. The boy watching helplessly as his sister is whipped. The runaway Eliza fleeing with her baby across the Ohio River, only 1 step ahead of the slave catchers.
And it was said that when the novel was put on stage, there was not one dry eye when Eliza reached the other side of the river. And Harriet knew that if she could get that response from her readers, she didn't need to make arguments about slavery.
She realizes that the way to do this was by playing on the heartstrings. You don't do it by playing on the outrage. You do it by convincing them that there are human beings in peril. It is the most popular book and the most influential book in American history. There is no competition for that title. It's going to convert millions of Americans, not to being for immediate abolitionism, not to being for racial equality, but for being against slavery. Now that's a huge thing. That's a sea change.
You can see Stowe taking aim at the fugitive slave law in incident after incident and basically urging her readers to defy what she thought was an anti-Christian, undemocratic law.